Hello and welcome to the Multiple Sclerosis Association of America's live webinar, Keeping It Simple, Everyday Mindfulness for People Living with Multiple Sclerosis. I am Peter Demiri, Vice President of Programs and Services for MSAA and your host for tonight's program. Before we begin, I just want to say on behalf of MSAA and our guest presenters that we're all thinking of the entire MS community and hope you and your family stay safe and healthy in these uncertain times. And understanding that this is a stressful and anxious time for all of us, we're glad to have the opportunity to present this webinar tonight and learn about mindfulness and how we can bring calm and balance back into our lives. Our guest presenter tonight is marriage and family therapist Cheryl Young of the Louisville Mindfulness Center. Cheryl works with individuals and families living with multiple sclerosis and helps her clients build effective coping strategies to assist with many of life's challenges that impact personal and family life, employment, and relationships. We're also honored to have two MS clients, Kathleen and Debbie, that will be joining us at the end of the program to talk a little bit about their experiences in using mindfulness to better manage their MS. So Cheryl, Kathleen, and Debbie, thank you so much for being here and presenting on this very important topic tonight. So,
Thank you, Peter. I'm going to let you take over controls of the slides because I think I just lost them again. But thank you, Peter and MSAA, very much. I'm grateful for this wonderful opportunity to spend time with our MS community and share ideas on how to regain some peace and calm back in our lives.
Absolutely. Thank you. So our program tonight is part of MSAA's 2020 MS Awareness Campaign, The Mind, Body, and MS Connection, which has been made possible by the generous support of Biogen, Bristol-Myers Squibb, and Genentech. As part of the campaign, we've hosted an earlier webinar, 2 podcasts, and an Ask the Expert online chat program. These recorded and archived programs can be found on our special MS Awareness Month website section on mymsaa.org. And as many of you may know, MSAA is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to improving lives today for the MS community. And in fact, this year marks our 50th anniversary as an MS advocacy organization. Listed here are just some of the many free programs and services available to people living with MS all across the country. We also have information and resources available about the coronavirus posted to our website, which is mymsaa.org. I also encourage everyone to visit our website or give us a call to learn more. And lastly, this program will be archived on our website within a week of tonight's broadcast. Watching the webinar, we encourage people to type questions in the chat box, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. And if you have any technical questions, please then type them into the chat box as well, and a representative for Ready Talk will respond to you. So with all of that covered, I am honored to turn the program over to Cheryl and have her begin.
Again, thank you so much, Peter, and I am very grateful for this opportunity. As Peter mentioned, I'm a marriage and family therapist. I specialize in the care of individuals and families living with a chronic illness such as multiple sclerosis. I plan on sharing with you tonight some mindfulness techniques and ideas that you may incorporate into your day to help reduce stress and anxiety that comes along with living with multiple sclerosis and just, frankly, in the times we're living in right now. We also have 2 people living with MS that will share their experiences with incorporating mindfulness and answer any questions you may have towards the end of this presentation. And I have to say, I am not a betting person, but however, if I bet if I were to ask those of us in the audience for a show of hands for any who have experienced a higher level of anxiety or fear or depression over the last few weeks, I'm guessing that most likely we would see almost all the hands raised, and mine included. Now more than ever, we need strategies and tools to help bring back some calm and relief to us. This slide, mindful versus mindful, is a great illustration of how our busy minds are constantly seeing things that aren't even in front of us due to all of our mental chatter. We're constantly thinking and worrying of things in the future or worrying about ruminating things that happened in the past. And these days now, perhaps more than ever, we get caught up in the uncertainty of our future, and we simply fail to be in the present. We are missing the opportunity to enjoy the beauty of life that is right in front of us. So we're going to keep it simple as our title tonight, because I think we've got a lot of complications, so we're going to try and keep it simple tonight. I want to start off by talking about why mindfulness. Why is that an important topic to bring up? You know, as human beings, our first natural instinct when facing an unknown or a fear is to go into a state of what is called fight or flight. This is described as the instinctive physiological response to a threatening situation, which readies one either to resist forcibly or to run away. A threatening situation can be many things: living with unknowns, the fear of our future, and now, more than ever, we are living in uncertain times. We tend to have a negative bias, possibly because of our ancestors that had to be on constant alert for what was going to harm them. So out of self-defense, we've developed a mind geared toward fight or flight. What's important to know is that we are still wired that way, even though we're not being hunted by lions in the wilderness, and that our brain cannot discern what is life-threatening event and what is simply our growing fear. So when we're in fight or flight situation, our bodies physically adapt by an increase in our heart rate. We begin perspiring, and our breathing becomes very rapid and shallow. Our bodies want to protect us from this perceived threat, and our minds jump in and take action. Our body's response is we tend to develop the next line in the story before it's even written. We become very good fortune tellers, except that usually it's not good fortune we're predicting for ourselves. Now this slide is maybe a little hard to read, but I'll just briefly go over it, and then we'll talk more about fight and flight and discuss how that impacts our nerves and our anxiety. Teaching ourselves to calm down when faced with fears is made possible through mindfulness techniques. Dr. Amy Sullivan provided some great information on her recent MSAA webinar on March 10th, which I believe is now available in the MSAA archive. In this presentation, she talks about another state called relax and calm. And I really like that idea of fight and flight, and also then relax and calm to kind of help understand what we can do. Now, we cannot completely remove fear, and to a small degree, being afraid is a healthy and even sometimes important to our well-being. But much like fear can be crippling, too much fear can be crippling and leave us in a state of fight or flight, or even freeze and keep us immobile from making any decisions or taking any action. I really like the idea of balance. So we're learning how to shift our minds into a state of relax and calm from fight or flight so we can make wise decisions. Because as it turns out, all that dwelling and ruminating on the past or trying to predict our future is very stressful and not very helpful or productive. What happens is it activates your sympathetic nervous system, the driving force behind the body's fight or flight response. Kicking that into continuous high gear can seriously tax your body and mind. Obviously, no one can live worry-free. But what we can do is try and dial down a prolonged fight or flight impulse by flexing our parasympathetic nervous system, also known as your relaxation response, through mindfulness practice. From a body-wise perspective, the more mindful you are, the more dominant your relaxation response becomes, which means you have fewer stress hormones coursing through you at any given time. The benefits of mindfulness can include reductions in blood pressure, heart rate, and inflammation. So the good news is you don't have to go out and buy any new equipment or join a gym. These techniques can be done right where you are in your own home, even under quarantine. You already have all you need to help regain control and shift your thinking and your body's response to these perceived and unwanted threats. With a little bit of intention and practice, we can retrain our brains and gain more clarity, peace, and calm back into our life. So what is mindfulness? Simply put, mindfulness is about being fully aware of whatever is happening in the present moment, without filters or the lens of a judgment of good or bad. Cultivating awareness is the mind and body and living in the here and now. You no longer have to be the judge. You just get to be the curious observer. Do you think that you would be able to sit for 1 minute and be completely quiet and silent, completely quiet your mind? For most of us, this is a difficult exercise. Our minds are always racing with what we should be doing and what we haven't gotten done yet. So mindfulness, in a nutshell, is described as paying attention to the present moment without judgment and having an awareness of our breath. Mindfulness is an incredible tool to help people understand and tolerate with their emotions in a healthy way. It helps us to alter our habitual responses by taking a pause and showing how we want to act. Let's move into some techniques and strategies to help work through some of these. This first strategy is called box breathing, and this one has really been making the news lately. I've seen it on several morning shows because the media is trying to bring in some experts to help teach us how we can use our breath to help calm us down and bring some relaxation to us. I also learned just today from one of our MS presenters, Kathleen, that her husband told her that is a technique they taught them while they were in Army training to help bring some relief to anxiety and calm. So it's widely used, and it's nothing brand new, but it's very effective for some people. What I'd like you to do is visualize a baby sleeping. Try and picture an infant sleeping peacefully and taking those deep belly breaths, holding it, and then just exhaling with a smile. That is what box breathing looks like. We have somehow learned how to take shorter, more shallow breaths, which can cause us to increase our heart rate and make us more anxious. So let's practice some of this. What I'd like to do is I will count to 4, and I want you to take some deep breaths in on the count of 4. And while you're doing that, I want you to think of something good, something you're grateful for, something you want more of in your life. And then we're going to hold that breath for 4 counts. And then I will count to 4 as you exhale out. And I want you to exhale out some of that worry and fear and stress that you've been carrying around. So we're just going to try one round of this, but I want you to get an idea of what that feels like. So let's start with the inhalation and some good positive thoughts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold it for 4 with all those good thoughts staying in your brain. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now exhale and just push out all the fear and worry and stress. The count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That practice, like I mentioned earlier, I believe needs to be practiced with intention a couple times a day, and hopefully in times when you're not already stressed out. What we're trying to do is give our brains a signal that we've got something that can calm us down. So if we only use it when we're in a stressed out situation, it won't relate it to being calming for them. So you want to try and practice it a couple times a day. We've got a couple suggestions as we get in further into this of how to make that work for you. Another strategy we've got is be where your feet are, or be present. In the moment, so your mind is open and free to see all the good that's already around you. Why don't you try bringing that here and now awareness to everyday activities? For example, notice the warmth of the water and the movement of your hands while you're washing the dishes, or washing your hands for the 20-second duration that we're all practicing now. Another way to be mindful is you could focus on the bristles of the toothbrush on your gums while you're brushing your teeth. You walk outside and observe the leaves and the grass and smells all around you on a nature walk. We want to bring all of our senses to us in the present. This practice allows us to pay attention to each of them and really allows us to be present. So in this technique is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to ask for you to participate again with this one. So first of all, we want to slow down and calm down. Take a couple deep breaths. And then I want you to look around and see 5 things that you can see. You can see the curtains on the drapes that are hanging on the wall, the color of the wall, maybe the color of the table that you're with, maybe a pen or a pencil that's there. Just notice 5 things you can see. And then 4 things you can feel. If you're sitting in a chair, kind of feel how you're situated in the chair, how the cushion feels, how your feet feel on the floor, if your arms are resting on the armrest, and how maybe your back is being supported by the chair. 4 things that you can feel. And then we're going to look at 3 things you can hear. Sometimes I can hear lights buzzing if it's really quiet, or if it's a nice day, I can hear birds chirping outside. And often I can just hear my own self breathing and be a reminder to slow things down. And lastly, think of one positive thing. Give yourself an affirmation for the day of something that, a positive affirmation for yourself. Like taking time to take care of yourself would be an excellent one. This next one is simply called peace. Peace is just an acronym for something that is a good tool to have prepared to use maybe when you know you're going into a difficult conversation or difficult situation, and it's just a reminder of how to slow yourself down and be able to act in a way that you want to act. So P is for pause. When you realize things are difficult, just use that little warning that this doesn't feel comfortable, and just take a pause. At the same time, you want to exhale. Again, maybe let out the negative inner mental chatter. A is for acknowledge, accept, and allow. By acknowledging the difficult situation, it doesn't indicate that you or require that you like it. It's just that you're recognizing it. C is for compassion, and that's compassion for yourself and for others. And sometimes this is the most difficult one because we tend to not be compassionate for ourselves. So it's a nice one to keep in there to be compassionate for ourselves. And E is for engage. So this is after you've paused and exhaled and you've acknowledged that's happening. You're ready to choose your response and be ready to engage with others in a calm and peaceful manner. And I hope you can imagine how that might help when you're walking into a difficult conversation, that if you could, sometimes we respond too quickly and regret words we say, and this will hopefully slow us down and allow us to show up as we would like to. This simple technique is about, we see what we want. We're setting a daily intention allows us to focus our attention on what we want more of in our lives and what we don't, and not what we don't have control over. And an example of this, I want to give a quick example. What I think of is when you're having company over, and how the only thing you can think of is what you haven't gotten done, how the food needs to still get finished, and the floors need to be mopped, and the windows need to be cleaned, and you're worried about all of that. And when your guests come to see you, all they see is your warmth, your graciousness, your hospitality, and smell the wonderful food that's cooking. And just think about, you're both in the same room at the same time, seeing the same things, but one is looking at only that's bad and one is looking at all the good. It's an opportunity for us to go back to that first slide at the beginning of the presentation and take a look at that. It's amazing to me how they're both looking at the same landscape. and all the person can see are what look to be problems and worries, while the dog is enjoying the beautiful landscape and enjoying the day. Perhaps that's why dogs are always happy. They're probably practicing mindfulness all the time. Again, we see what we look for, so make an intention to look for the good. Speaking more about intention, and this may be a new concept to some and maybe not a new concept to some, but it's just a reminder that starting each day with an intention, a word or a phrase, to return to when starting to feel overwhelmed. It just brings you back and centers you. It's just kind of your little rescue. When things start seeming crazy, you can just think of what that word is. It allows you to focus on where you want to go with your day and not where your day is taking you. I often suggest to clients to write this on their mirror with a dry erase marker, or you can even use a Post-it note, something just so it's in front of you. But it's important for your mind to see what you're thinking, so you need to write it and see it. An example of this would be, for me, my word is balance. I want more balance, less stress and more balance. And I think this is a perfect time that we're in, where we have more time now that we can start building those practices, like practicing yoga at our home, or taking walks, or just sitting outside, or reading a book. And so that when we go forward and we're coming out of this crisis, we will have these already habits put into our day. So I'm focusing on balance. And at the end of the day, or any time during the day actually, to think of things you're grateful for. Gratitude, simply put, works. There's so much research on the benefits of practicing gratitude. It changes our perspective and plays a role in the shift to shift back into relax and calm versus fight or fight. I want to give you a small challenge here to consider for the next couple days or weeks or months, however long you want to do it. I think especially during these times when we're spending more time with our families and our partners, that we tend to be able to see all the glaring behaviors that make us crazy. But I'd like to challenge you to start looking for what you're grateful for with them. Did they get up and make the coffee, or did they make the bed? Did someone walk the dog today or let the dog out for you? Try and look for something good. And you can write it down, or you can better yet even tell them that. And just be more focused on what you're grateful for about that person than what it is that's making you not happy with them, or the behavior that you want to change. And what I know about this practice is that we won't change the other person. They won't change by that. But what will change, I guarantee, will be your influence or your attitude towards them. So it's a nice practice to just take a challenge for the next day or two and see if that helps you, how you're looking through it, the lens you look through. And here's your prescription. This poster I have hanging on my refrigerator. It's your gratitude prescription to take a dose every morning, or as needed throughout the day, and with a caution that it may cause a shift in perspective. It may cause feelings of abundance, and you can expect decreased feelings of fear and anxiety after taking this medicine. Now, this one seems counterintuitive to everything we've been talking about. We've been talking about looking for the good all night and how to find things that we appreciate and have gratitude for. But what my experience in working with MS clients is that one thing is very predictable. We're going to have bad days. You're going to wake up some days and you're just not going to feel like going through with the plans you had made because MS has decided to show up and take over. Whether that's fatigue or depression or physical symptoms of MS, it's just come by and everything has to change. So when life with MS creates some unpredictable stress and anxiety for individuals living with the diagnosis and their family and friends, so I always suggest let's just plan on it. Let's just have a day that we know, have something prepared for that day so that it doesn't completely take over. No one likes to think about it. However, having a plan will release some of the threat of it. Just know that you don't ever have to use the plan, but having it will give you some peace of mind. I got some few ideas on that. How about just a movie or a book, some things that are already accessible to you? Going on a picnic, I worked with some moms with MS one summer, and we were recognizing that there was a lot of chances that they had their bad days. They couldn't go out. It was too hot. And so we just put together a list of things, or we had them actually make a box. And everyone in the family could write down something they'd like to do on that day in the house. What would that look like? And so that box was ready to go and pull out if they weren't able to go out and have that planned picnic that they were hoping for. Again, we're just taking away the power of a bad day. I have just gone over a few of the basic mindfulness techniques or to refresh your memory. Now, how to incorporate these into your day is another idea. One strong suggestion is that you incorporate these right after a habit that you're doing currently all the time. An example would be you get up and brush your teeth every morning, and right after you brush your teeth, maybe use that time to set your intention. So you're tagging it along with it, a routine habit, so that we can make it a little more routine going forward. When you're making the coffee, you could practice the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, incorporating all your senses. And the box breathing can be done at any time throughout the day, whatever that comes, either before a meal or I think Debbie suggested one time doing the box breathing at red lights when you're driving, just whenever that comes across, so you can add these things in. But the important point to remember is putting these along with a regular habit will help create that routine and create the likelihood of your maintaining it longer. Well, I am going to shift this discussion over to our real MS experts who are here. Both of these ladies have been living with MS and practicing mindfulness, and I wanted you to hear from them about their experiences. I will let them each introduce themselves, and then we would love to hear from you if you've tried any of these techniques or have something else, what works and what doesn't. So let me let you introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Kathleen. I'm a stay-at-home mom for 26 years, and I have very beautiful 3 daughters.
I'm 26 and married, a 22-year-old and a 16. I've been married to a very handsome man for 27 years, and he is currently deployed in Afghanistan and listening right now. I was first diagnosed in 2013, and we were living in Germany, and my first symptom was eye vision. I live my life to the fullest, and my motto is, MS has me, but I don't have it.
Hi, this is Debbie. I'm a 65-year-old retired educator with 2 children, both of whom live out of state and are married. I'm the lucky grandmother of 2 adorable grandchildren. I was diagnosed with MS in 2007. However, my symptoms probably go back to 1992. My last exacerbation was 4 years ago, and I stay healthy, participating in MS yoga, water aerobics, crafts, and reading.
Thank you, Kathleen and Debbie. Now, just for the audience to understand that over the past 10 days, each of us have been more intentional about practicing some of these techniques, and we've decided to kind of keep track of how it's working or not working for us. So I'd love to hear from each of you 1 or 2 of these things that worked or didn't work. Debbie, would you mind sharing with the group what you shared with me about your trip to the grocery store?
Well, as you know, we're probably not supposed to be going out very much, but I had a couple of things that I really needed, and both of my children live out of town, and I find it very difficult to ask for help. So our local grocery started a process of several days a week. They would open from 7 to 8 for people who were 60 or older or who had other situations. And it would be after the store had been closed all night and it was wiped down and clean. So I thought, well, that'll be a safe time. And I just really didn't think anybody would be there. I pulled in the parking lot and it was pretty full. So I thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this, but I really wanted those oranges and apples. So I went in. I thought, I'm just going to be a moment. And when I walked in, it was crowded, and there were a lot of people with masks. And I could feel myself getting a little tense, and there was a lady that got closer to me, and that really tensed me up. But I just stood. I got to a place and did the box breathing, and I felt that totally relaxed me, and I was able to get out of there very quickly. The other thing that I have used was the daily intention, and I found myself watching television too much, so I put move more on the bathroom window or bathroom mirror, and I couldn't believe how well that worked, because every time I would go upstairs, I would see it, and then I would think, okay, I have to move. And I made an obstacle course in my house of walk and then lift weights and walk a little bit further and do stretches. And I would do that every hour. And it felt great, but I would not have remembered to do that if it had not been written for me. And the gratitude, I do that a lot too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope people will call in with questions for these ladies and suggestions on what's working for them also. Kathleen, would you like to share your experience over the last 10 days with these some of these techniques that worked or didn't work for you?
I'm like Debbie, the gratitude, this sunset in my big thing. But just at the end of the day, have the gratitude, and then you think about the three of us. It says, thank you, God, for making it an amazing day. And it just makes you realize, can't wait for the next day to see what other good is happening. I love the
pardon the interruption. This is the operator. We cannot hear you.
The phrases I had is, you can do it, be positive, be productive. And when I was going through the day, I would remember these words, and I've been sitting on the couch and go be productive. So doing visual and seeing it just in the gratitude of the two really helped me.
Very, very nice. Thank you, ladies, for sharing. I appreciate both of you for your willingness to say yes in order to be able to help others, even when it's slightly out of your comfort zone. I really appreciate you both being here tonight. And Peter, I think we're ready for some questions.
Yeah, that's great. First of all, thank you, Cheryl, so much. That's an excellent presentation, a lot of great insights. I love the box breathing myself. I was picturing myself at the Jersey Shore on a nice July day, so that's always nice to think of. Kathleen and Debbie, really appreciate your stories as well. I think, unfortunately, we're a little hard to hear Kathleen, but hopefully people got to hear some of that, and we appreciate that. We did have some questions that came in, and I want to share with them now and see who would like to answer. So what is the difference between mindfulness and meditation?
That's a great question. They often get used interchangeably, but mindfulness involves stilling the mental chatter and focusing on the here and now. It's about concentrating on what's happening in the moment without dwelling or judging or trying to change anything. So, like in other words, it's no overthinking or no overanalyzing, or the opposite, banishing all thoughts. Unlike some forms of meditation, which involve totally clearing your mind and settling your mind, mindfulness means letting your thoughts come and go without rushing to figure out what they mean. And I view mindfulness as something that we do daily. We just have to bring awareness to it. We're always being exposed to these, with our five senses, to things going on around us. And it's just bringing an awareness back to that and into your breathing.
Oh, that's great. Here is a question about one of the symptoms a lot of people have is fatigue. So it said, will mindfulness help with my fatigue?
You know, that's a good question also. I am familiar with one study that showed some improvement after an 8-week course of mindfulness practice. that helped in reducing the MS fatigue. And the researchers utilized a scaling measurement called the Modified Fatigue Scale, MS Fatigue Scale. However, the sample size is very small, and more research needs to be done before that claim can be made. They did see, some improvement. They showed some improvement, but I think there needs to be more research to make that a statement. What I do know, however, is that chronic stress and anxiety can add to fatigue. And we do know that mindfulness can greatly reduce stress and anxiety. So in a roundabout way, it will help with their fatigue. I just don't want to make the statement that it's your MS fatigue, because I know that's very different.
Excellent. And another question, in a sense, around a symptom of MS, which is pain. When in pain, how could mindfulness be helpful?
Debbie's shaking her head that she's got something to say about that.
I have experienced a lot of migraines for many years, and what I find is the box breathing has helped tremendously. Or when I'm going, having blood drawn, anything that I'm thinking that's painful, but particularly I have a lot of chronic pain, and on really bad days, the box breathing really helps. And I would also say that having gratitude for many other things during the day can really helps that as well. Thank you.
And I just like to add, too, that our minds are very powerful. And while we can't remove the pain with mindfulness, I think we can minimize it by the amount that we're putting stress on it and focusing on it. So I think, again, practicing it on a regular basis and getting your mind on other things does help to reduce some of the feelings of pain.
Absolutely. Great advice there. Another question. For someone who may be experiencing an MS relapse, what are some helpful ways to manage negative thoughts that may come up during this time?
Yeah, that again goes back to that having a bad day idea that we know relapses are in part of our lives. At some point we can count on having one. Whether we do or not, let's hope that we don't. But if they do come, have a plan for it. Often I had my with my Moms with MS team, our group, we had a relapse preparedness plan. Who's going to pick up the kids when I can't do it? Who's going to, fix dinners, and have a plan in place to keep you from adding that anxiety and worry to that day, because you know when it will come. If you have a team lined up to help take over, that hopefully will relieve some of the anxiety that comes along with that. And I think as far as releasing some of the anxiety, I think any of these, even while you're laying in bed, if you just take your mind and focus at what you can see, what you can hear, kind of get away from focusing only on the pain or the relapse, it'll help ease the anxiety as well.
That's great advice. Thank you. This isn't a question so much, but a statement about how helpful someone found Tai Chi. So maybe you could elaborate on that.
Absolutely. And at our MS Center here in Louisville, we have a Tai Chi class that's so popular. We've had to add it 4 times a week, and it's full every time. They come twice a week, and there's a lot of research out of Harvard actually on the benefits of it, specifically for Parkinson's patients, but we have found an improvement with gait and balance, as well as calmness and anxiety. It seems like the more confidence they're gaining, our patients we're seeing confidence come out of that. Tai Chi has got just really robust research that supports the benefits for people with chronic illness. Would either of you like to speak to it? No, they said okay. No, that's it.
Okay, great. So I think you had touched on some of these strategies, but the question is, how do you stop worrying and anxiety from overtaking you, especially when your family and friends rely on you to be the calm one?
I think that's very good, and the hard part of that is just getting started, making your intention, and maybe start with that with your day, because we tend to wake up worrying about what's on our list to do, what we didn't do. So start with an intention of, today I will remain calm, and learning to say no when people are asking you to do things outside of what you can do that day. Another thought is just to start with the breathing to kind of get yourself centered and calm down, because we tend to, I think as the question indicated, worry about things that haven't happened yet. So there's another technique called ABC, which is, kind of what is the activating event that's causing the triggering this cause. Knowing that my kids are coming home and they're going to expect me to do something. B is what is behavior, and the behavior is worry, or I'm causing me to worry and get frustrated. And C would be what is the consequence of that. And that might just be your mental health, that you're not able to calm down and be present for your family. And then I like to add D to that, which is, so let's debunk that. Let's figure out what would your best friend say, or someone you feel you can confide in if you told them the situation. How would they respond to that? So get it out of your head and let it, kind of just the facts. What is true about this, and what is it that I'm worrying about that it hasn't actually happened?
Right. So try not to project so much into the future for things you don't know or can't control, correct?
Right. And also, Peter, along with that, it's very important is to accept what it is. Accept whatever is happening. You don't have to like it again, but the more you fight it, the greater your distress will be. So it's a practice you have to just try, because it's none of us like the situation we're in right now, but fighting it and being angry about it all day just makes it worse for us. So we kind of have to accept what that is, and that then frees up our brain to think about other things that we can do instead of what we can't do.
Very good points. Thank you. And our last question, how long do I need to practice these tips before I see the results?
Well, research would say 8 weeks. That has been researched and evidence supported, is about 8 weeks is when you really you'll see the results. But I think that I've seen people see results fairly quickly as soon as they're practicing gratitude. And you maybe just try one thing to see how it's working for you, so you don't overload your schedule and time. But these are called practices, meaning that they do have to be practiced. I used to say it's not a Band-Aid for a crisis. It's really something that you have to have already in your tool chest. I really don't believe that happy, nice people just exist or just happen out that way. I think that they are that way because they're putting some practice into before they come into a difficult situation, which will prepare them to respond in a gracious way.
Right. Give it some time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, we've reached the end of our program tonight, and I do want to once again thank Cheryl Young, Kathleen, and Debbie for their excellent presentations. So much helpful insights and great strategies and techniques. Really found it useful. I hope the audience did as well. I also want to thank our funding partners, Biogen, Bristol-Myers Squibb, and Genentech for supporting this webinar, along with the additional programs for our MS Awareness Month campaign. As mentioned, tonight's webinar will be archived on our website at mymsaa.org within a week or so. And finally, please consider completing a very brief evaluation survey that is coming up next. So on behalf of the MSAA and our presenters, thank you so much again for watching, and please stay safe.